Mangalacharan prayers, and then we can get started. Timir, Ankita Mataji, Deepak, Mrigakshi Mataji, and Shambhakta Prabhu. Thank you all for joining. Sitarani Mataji, Rampriya Prabhu. And my thanks to Krishnangi Mataji for doing the video. So I'll get started with the Mangalacharan prayer, and hopefully others will join as we go along. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhayascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Matsamo nasti papatma aparadhi ch kaschana parihare pilajjame kim bruve purushottama. Bhumau skalitapadanam bhumireva valambanam tvai jata paradhanam tvameva sharanam prabho. Govinda vallabhe radhe prarthaye tvamaham sada tvadiyam iti janathu Govindo mam tvaya saha. Radha radhita radhesha radhika prana vallabha Radha ramana vande tvam radhika prema nirjita. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for joining. I see that we have Mukta Mataji, Salika Madhavi, and Vijay Krishna from Austin, along with Deepak and Sindhu Kanya. Hare Krishna. Very well. Thank you so much for joining. All right, we'll get started. So today is the 8th chapter that we are going to discuss. And we'll have one more chapter after this, which will be the 9th chapter. Then we have a few weeks before we take the exam. The exam will be, for those who are participating in the Bhakti Shastri for the first time, the exam will consist of
few essay questions, many multiple choice questions, few short answer questions, and some verses for memorization. This will encompass all the 9 chapters, but we are not going to be testing the memory. The goal of one's doing Bhakti Shastri is not to test how much one can remember. In fact, Krishna says that remembrance comes from him. So the purpose of the Bhakti Shastri is that you are all going to be, in one way or other, preachers. Now, you may be a mother, you can still preach to your uh, sons or daughters, or even sometimes to your husbands. There are cases where, where Matajis are really like, having that devotional bent, and the husband not so much. Or you might be even telling to your neighbors. So the whole idea is the Bhakti Shastri, the goal is how much can you assimilate what Srila Prabhupada has given us, and not just inculcate, but also how much can you present. So that is the goal of Bhakti Shastri. It really, in the end of the day, it really doesn't matter if one gets 100 marks or if one does not get 100 marks. The whole idea is to understand and assimilate Srila Prabhupada's teachings. So we can do more on the exam towards the end of the class, but that is just in a nutshell for those who are doing it for the first semester. Um, we can get started. So today we'll do little different. So we can all do the chapter together, as in you can be muted, and then I'll do the chapter, and then we can do the English translation, and then we can get into the chapter a little bit. So Krishangi Mataji, if you can just put the chapter and probably not even have the translation, just the Sanskrit, the Devanagari, and the Roman transliteration. Then we can do the chapter together. So what you can do, yeah, okay, perfect. In that, we can go up, Mate. No, up towards the top. Yeah, in the default view, no, one below, default view. And then you can click on the advanced, right? And then we can say, yeah, remove the synonyms, translations, and the purport. Good. So we can get our chapter a day done, and then we can complete. Atha Ashtamodhyayah Arjuna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Adhyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Adi Bhutam Cha Kim Proktam Adi Daivam Kimuchyate Adi Yajna Katam Kotra Dehesmin Madhusudhana Prayana-kale च कथं ज्ञेयोऽसि नियतात्मभिः श्रीभगवानुवाच अक्षरं ब्रह्म परमं स्वभावोऽध्यात्ममुच्यते भूतभावोद्भवकरो विसर्गः कर्मसंज्ञितः आदिभूतं क्षरो भावः पुरुषश्चादिदैवतम् आदियज्ञोऽहमेवात्र देहे देहभृतां वरा अन्तकाले च मामेव स्मरन् मुक्त्वा कलेवरं यः प्रयाति समद्भावम् याति नास्त्यत्र संशयः यं यं वापि स्मरन् भावं त्यजत्यन्ते कलेवरं तं तमेवैति कौन्तेय सदा तद्भावभावितः तस्मात् सर्वेषु कालेषु मामनुस्मरयुध्य च मय्यार्पितमनो बुद्धिर्मामे वैश्यस्य संशयः अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसा नान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थानुचिन्तयन् कवीन् पुराणामनुशासितारम् अनोरणीयांशमनुस्मरेद्यः सर्वस्य धातारमचिन्त्य रूपम् आदित्यवर्णं तमसः परस्तात् प्रयाणकाले मनसाचलेन भक्त्या युक्तो योगबलेन चैव भ्रुवोर्मध्ये प्राणमवेश्य सम्यक् सतं परं पुरुषमुपैति दिव्यम् यदक्षरं वेदविदो वदन्ति विशन्ति यद्यतयो वीतरागः यदिच्छन्तो ब्रह्मचर्यं चरन्ति तत्ते पदं संग्रहेण प्रवक्ष्ये सर्वद्वाराणि संयम्य मनो हृदि निरुध्य च मूर्ध्यध्यात्मनः प्राणम् आस्थितो योगधारणम् ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् यः प्रयाति त्यजन् देहं स याति परमां गतिम् अनन्यचेता सततं यो मां स्मरति नित्यशः तस्याहं सुलभः पार्थ नित्ययुक्तस्य योगिना मामुपेत्य पुनर्जन्म दुःखालयमशाश्वतं नाप्नुवन्ति महात्मानः संसिद्धिं परमां गताः आब्रह्मा भुवनाल्लोकः पुनरावर्तिनोऽर्जुन मामुपेत्य तु कौन्तेय पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सहस्रयुगपर्यन्तम् अहर्यद्ब्रह्मणो विदुः रात्रिं युगसहस्रान्तां तेहोरात्रविदो जना अव्यक्ताद्व्यक्तयः सर्वा प्रभवत्यः रागमे रात्र्यागमे प्रलीयन्ते तत्रैवाव्यक्तसंज्ञके भूतग्रामास एवायं भूत्वा भूत्वा प्रलीयते रात्र्यागमे वशः पार्थ प्रभवत्यः रागमे परस्तस्मात्तु भावोऽन्यो व्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यः स सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यस्तु न विनश्यति अव्यक्तोऽक्षर इत्युक्तस्तम् आहुः परमां गतिम् यं प्राप्य न निवर्तन्ते तद्धाम परमं मम पुरुषः स परा पार्थ भक्त्या लभ्यस्त्वनन्यया यस्यान्तःस्थानि भूतानि येन सर्वमिदं ततम् यत्र काले त्वनावृत्तिम् आवृत्तिं चैव योगिनः प्रयातयान्ति तं कालं वक्ष्यामि भरतर्षभ अग्निर्ज्योतिरः शुक्लः षण्मासा उत्तरायणम् तत्र प्रयात गच्छन्ति ब्रह्मविदो जना धूमो रात्रिस्तथा कृष्णः षण्मासा दक्षिणायनम् तत्र चान्द्रमसां ज्योतिर्योगी प्राप्य निवर्तते Shukla Krishne gati hyete jagatah shashvate mate ekaya yatyana vrittim anyaya vartate punaha. Naite Shriti Parthajanan Yogi Muhyati Kaschana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna Vedeshu Yajneshu Tapassu Chaiva Daneshu Yat Punya Phalam Pradishtam Atyeti Tat Sarvamidam Viditva Yogi param sthanamupayiti chadyam. Om tatsadidi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Taraka Brahma Yogo Nama Ashtamodhyayaha. Hari Om. Hare Krishna. So in the chapter 8, we rather leave or segue into the previous chapter. How it is connected is Krishna does reveal a bunch of concepts to Arjuna in the last two verses of the seventh chapter. And those last two verses are 728 and 729. If I can just pull it up here, then you can see those two verses. Krishna talks about so let's see. So it is Yesham Tvantagatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmana Te Dvandva Moha Nirmukta Vachante Mam Drida Vrataha. Next is Jara, next verse, yes. Jara Marana Mokshaya Mam Ashritya Yatantite Te Brahma Tadvidu Kritsnam Adhyatmam Karma Chakilam. So you can see the words here, Adhyatma, Karma, and then Brahma. So these three are mentioned in this particular verse. And let's go to the next verse. So Krishna here says, Sadi Bhutadi Daivam Ma, Sadi Yajnam Chave Ye Viduhu, Prayana Kale Pichamam, Te Vidur Yukta Chetasa. So he introduces few more words. It is Adi Bhuta, Adi Daiva, Adi Yajna, and then whoever remembers me at the time of death, then they achieve me. If you see the translation little bit, Krishna Mataji, those in full consciousness of me who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of material manifestation of the demigods and of all the methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So these two verses constitute, or they segue into the 8th chapter. Now in the 8th chapter, let's see this. Perfect. All right. Tejas, you want to do just the translation for the first verse?
Okay. Translation. Arjuna inquired, O my lord, O supreme person, what is Brahman? What is the self? What are the fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me.
Thank you. So here, so Krishna is asking, and then second one, Vijay Krishna, the second one, please, the translation.
Who is the Lord of sacrifice, and how does he live in the body, or Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death?
So let's see. How many definitions did Arjuna ask? So if you see from two of these verses, what is Brahman? What is self, which is Adhyatma? What is karma or fruitive activity? What is this Prakriti or Adi Bhuta? And what is Adi Daiva? And then sixth one is, who is Adi Yajna and how does he live in this body? And those who are, and how do you know at the time of death? There are 8 questions that are asked in these particular 2 verses, and they are based in the on the previous chapter. Now let's see what Krishna answers it. Anushri, please, if you can read the translation for text number 3.
Okay, Prabhu. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "The indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the Self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma or fruit of activities."
So let's unpack this a little bit. So the here one of the questions that is asked is, what is Brahman, or what is the spiritual thing, or spiritual thing, substance, concept? What is this? And here the Lord explains the indestructible transcendental living entity is called Brahman. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that there is also something called Parabrahman, which means that there is the Brahman, the Jiva, and the Parabrahman. And the second aspect of it is, what is Adhyatma, or the nature of self? What does the self do? What is, because this is a very relevant question, because in this material world, everybody is born with certain psychophysical, physiological conditioning that pushes them to do duties in certain way. Apart from like the 4 varnas, chatur varnyam, where there is a natural tendency to perform work, even in the animalistic life, you can see everybody is restricted on a particular way of doing things. So like the tiger just goes and hunts in the forest and eats flesh, and maybe a cow just eats grass. So amongst all these varieties of bodies, the activities or the nature seem to be very different than what the spiritual nature is. And Arjuna is asking, what is Adhyatman, or the nature of self? Swabhava is the tendency of the Atma to serve. The nature of Atma is to serve. In fact, Srila Prabhupada writes in the introductions to Bhagavad Gita that dharma or swabhava is something that sustains, or that something that can help maintain. Let me give an example. If you take sugar, the very quality of sugar is the sweetness. If somebody comes to Jwalarasa Mataji, she's making an excellent cake that she bakes usually. And she says, Mataji, I have got some excellent sugar for you, and please, you can use it in your next cake. And she is, being the very clever person that she is somewhat suspicious of the origins of this person and the words that he uses. And she takes a little bit just to see what's going on. She puts it and tastes it in her tongue. It's very, very salty. And then she says, well, you said this is sugar, but it tastes salty. Oh, no, it's a different kind of sugar. And she is smart. She'll chastise him, saying that sugar means sweetness. If it is not sweet, then it is not sugar. Yes or yes, Mataji? Same way, the tendency or the quality of sweetness cannot be taken away from sugar, which defines the whole way of sugar. Similarly, for Jiva or Atma, what is it that inherently cannot be taken up? The eternal nature of Atma that cannot be pulled out from Atma is the service. Now, if one can serve in the material world, but one can serve in the spiritual world, nevertheless, that idea of love, that is to accept and to give love and to serve, is the nature of the soul, and that cannot be taken away. And that's what is mentioned in this the next ones, which is the eternal nature of the soul, Adhyatma. And then what is the next one? Then karma. We can go back. Krishani Mataji, thank you. And then No, third. So we can see, and then action pertaining to the development of material bodies of the living entity is called karma or fruitive activity. The very body that I have today is the result of my past karma. In fact, karma can mean either the activities I do, the results of my activity, or the manifested state of my activities or karma, which is my body. So this is called the body. At very outset, Krishna is giving the difference between the body and the soul. Text 4. Young adults, anybody who, Tejas, can you please keep track? And let's call young adults first, young Vaishnavas. So anybody there that wants to read first before we can open up? Oh, Gayatri is there. Gayatri, you want to read? Okay. All right. All right. They just go for it. Can you, if you can call whoever wants to
Anshu
read.
said that he could read.
Oh, Anshu is there on call. Go for it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Very well.
Text 4 translation. O best of the embodied beings, the physical nature, which is constantly changing, is called Adibhuta, the material manifestation. The universal form of the Lord, which includes all the demigods, like those of the sun and moon, is called Adhideva. And I, the Supreme Lord, represented as the Supersoul in the heart of every embodied being, am called Adhiyagya, the Lord of Sacrifice.
Thank you. So here the Prakriti or the material nature that is constantly is changing is called Adibhuta. And the Adi Daiva is the Virat Purusha of the Lord, where the Lord is shown to be the chief maintainer, controller, and the Lord of all the demigods. And we can discuss more Virat Rupa on the 11th chapter in the next semester. And the last one is called Adi Yajna. Adi Yajna is also Paramatma, who is sitting in the heart of every living entity. So here Krishna answers two questions like who is Adi Yajna and where does he live? So he lives in the heart of every living entity. So of the 8 questions in first 2 verses, Krishna answers 7 questions. And the entire remaining chapter, chapter 8, is answering this one question: how can one remember you at the time of death? And it's a pretty relevant question because one thing that Krishna mentions in the second chapter is Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu mritur janma mritasya cha. So he says that for those who have taken birth, death is inevitable. And for those who have given up their body, birth is inevitable, whether here or in spiritual planets. And this particular question also was asked by Maharaj Parikshit. This was one of the beginning questions of Srimad Bhagavatam. We hear the story of how Maharaj Parikshit was hungry and thirsty, and he was in the forest, going on a hunting expedition. And he, for somehow or other, Bhagavatam doesn't mention, got separated from his party of soldiers. And he approached the ashram of Shamika Rishi, and he wanted to get some food and some water. And he found that the sage was deep in meditation. Maharaj Parikshit was already hungry and thirsty, and he was not really sure if this sage is deliberately closing his eyes and feigning as if he is in samadhi to avoid me, a Kshatriya, who are in lower class than him, or is he genuinely meditating? And because he gave me such a cold reception, let me pay him in kind. And he, as you know the story, he picks up a dead snake and puts it around the neck of the sage. And his son Shringi hears of this and curses him to die in 7 days. And Maharaj Parikshit, he says, this is wonderful. This is what should have happened correctly. And though he was capable of countering Shringi's, the small boy's curse, he takes this as a mercy of the Supreme Lord. And he gives up his kingdom. He installs his son Janamejaya, and he fasts to death on the bank of river Ganges. At this point of time, the who's who of the spiritual sages come from different planets to the earth. And we hear about how Shukadeva Goswami makes his glorious entrance into that arena where everybody makes him way and offers him the seat to speak, and how Shukadeva Goswami starts narrating the entire Bhagavatam. But the two questions he asks, Parikshit Maharaj asks is, O sage, please tell me, what is the highest welfare or the highest activity that a human being can do? And the second question he asks is, what is specifically the duty of a man who's about to die? Because that was really close to him, or that was really urgent to him. And while in the material state, it might seem that death is very far and we are not going to be affected by it, but it's a inevitable fact that every one of us will be facing that situation sooner than later, or later than sooner. It really doesn't matter. But the problem needs to be solved, and therefore Arjuna asks this question. Maharaj Parikshit asked in Bhagavatam, and Arjuna is asking the same question here. Like, how one can remember you at the time of death? And the next whole chapter actually is an explanation of that. So just to lay the outline of the different chapters, Krishna asks or talks about how to remember him at the time of death for the next 3 verses. Then he talks about mixed devotion which is mixed with jnana, and then pure devotion. And then the various ways in which the yogis pass through this world, and how the devotees don't have to worry, because it's a worry. We are not like Bhishma Dev, because Bhishma Dev had this capacity. He had got this boon, as we know, from his father, Shantanu, who was really pleased by his sacrifice that he did for him. And the vow that he took, that I'll be celibate and I'll never become the king. And Maharaj Parikshit gave him, his father, Maharaj Shantanu, gave him the boon of, you can die anytime you choose. And please understand that it might seem to be a good boon to have, but for 56 days, Bhishma Dev was lying on the bed of arrows. It was not an easy thing. That boon was actually mitigated when the Lord came to visit him on his deathbed. And the reason for that is, I'm going a little bit digressing because we do need a little bit of stories. Yes or yes, or should I just directly go? Okay. All right. So we know the story of how in the I don't remember, 10th or 11th day of Mahabharata war, in those days, how Bhishma was laid down on the bed of the arrows by Arjuna. And because he had this boon that he will choose his own time of death, he didn't die, but where he was just lying on the battlefield, and all around there was a ring of soldiers guarding his body as long as he didn't give up, because it was against the Kshatriya. Then people could say, well, Prabhu, he could have just been lifted up from the battlefield and taken to another location, like the leaders do in the modern context. Anytime there is an attack on their office or Capitol Hill, as the case may be, they are immediately rushed to bunkers or some other things. Why it didn't happen for Bhishma Dev? In fact, the Kshatriya code of warrior says that you should, once you are lying in the battlefield, you are never taken away unless to perform your antakriya. You just are not moved to a secured location. So Bhishma Dev was there in the vicinity of the battlefield, but he was being guarded. And the Mahabharat war was over, and Bhishma Dev was still lying there. And Yudhishthir Maharaj won the kingdom. He, along with Krishna, goes to Hastinapur. And in the Hastinapur, he realizes the true impact. There are people in the modern context who want to cling to power at any cost. And here was Yudhishthir Maharaj, after fairly winning Mahabharat war, he goes to Hastinapur, and along the way he sees the, the, the heart-breaking effects of the war. Thousands upon thousands of widows, they were condemning Maharaj Yudhishthir. They said, we lost our husbands, the sole maintainer and protector of our family, because of you. It's natural to vent the anger like that. And Maharaj Yudhishthir got despondent. He said, what did I do? And then he became so depressed. He said to Krishna and his brothers, I don't want to rule this kingdom. I don't want to be the king. Just because for my own selfish desire to be the king, millions of soldiers had to be killed. I am actually going to go to hell. And before I die, I'll renounce everything. I'll go to forest and perform severe austerities. And Bhima is like, why did you do that? We fought this war for you, and now you're saying it doesn't. Anyway, Bhima is a very he is a very tempestuous personality, passionate personality. But in any case, Krishna tried to convince him, and then he couldn't be convinced. So then Krishna says to Yudhishthir, okay, let's go talk to Bhishma Dev. Let's go to Bhishma Dev, and then he will answer your questions. And the 5 Pandavas and all the royal members actually go visit Bhishma Dev to pay the respects. Krishna had 2 purposes behind this. Now you can say, Prabhu, why Krishna couldn't convince Yudhishthir to actually rule the kingdom? He's supposed to be God, no? I mean, he can do anything he wants to. Why didn't he convince? Why was he not able to convince Yudhishthir? The answer is that he wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev. He wanted to give spotlight and credit to Bhishma Dev. And so Krishna and Yudhishthir and Pandavas, they visit Lord Bhishma, and Bhishma is so grateful that my Lord has come. And then now the time has come for me to depart, because I can see Krishna while I give up my body. But when Krishna approaches Bhishma Dev, Krishna says to Bhishma, oh Bhishma, Maharaj Yudhishthir has come. He has some questions to ask of you. And Bhishma Dev says, because Bhishma Dev, please understand, the arrows, it is mentioned in Mahabharata that there were so many arrows that infiltrated the body of Lord Bhishma Dev that there was no gap between one arrow and the next. It was so densely packed, the arrows that were piercing his body. And the pain, you can only imagine, will be so intense. And after that, he's not eating food or drinking water while living or lying on the deathbed of that arrows. In fact, we know the story of how he says, I am thirsty and I need pillows. And Arjuna gives him the pillow of arrows, and then he shoots the arrow into the ground, and the Ganges water gushes out, and his thirst is quenched. After that, he didn't eat it. So when Krishna approached Bhishma and said, please, give a class on the Vedic scriptures or question and answers of Vedic scriptures by Yudhishthira, Bhishma said, my lord, my body is in intense pain and agony. My intelligence is clouded. My mind is unable to think. I don't know. What can I speak? I cannot recall anything because I'm in such a condition. And the Lord said, from now on, till you give up your body, you will neither feel any pain, neither will you feel any hunger, thirst, your intelligence will be sharp, and your knowledge will be restored. When Krishna says Sarvasya Chaham Hrivi Sannivishto, it is not Bhishma Dev who was able to eloquently answer. And you should read the Mahabharata, the questions that were asked. It was not just one question was a class. When Yudhishthir asked a question, actually Bhishma was able to give a lengthy story from the scriptures about what he was trying to say, scriptural evidence along with the story. It is amazing question and answer sessions that they go on. It's going for a length. It was not just like one or two questions, thank you very much. It was like going on and on. He was asking questions and Bhishma Dev was answering. So this is definitely one of the great highlights of remembering Krishna. And we can take inspiration from Lord Bhishma that each of us have that same privilege and accessibility like Bhishma Dev to remember Krishna at the time of death. Based on our lifetime of devotion, Krishna might even walk up to us when we are dying and say, okay, let's go now. We have had enough. And when you read Bhagavatam in the 5th canto, because you might think it's an easy thing, we are here, Krishna is there, seems to be easy, but relatively it's not that easy. The material world is so difficult to overcome. It's the modes are so strong, and how they control and how supreme is the Lord. It comes as we read Bhagavatam. Sorry for the digression, but we will go through a few more verses and then we can talk. Yes, Tejas, so you can start asking the devotees to come.
Okay, so first is Anuradha Mataji, then Mukta Mataji, then Lita Madhavi Mataji.
Okay, wonderful. Text 5, Anuradha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Vardhan Pranam. Translation, text 5. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Thank you.
Thank you. And text 6.
Text 6. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail.
So here, just 1 minute, Lalita. So I'll just quickly add. So the 8 questions that were asked by Arjuna, out of which Krishna answers the question in the 5th itself, where he says, this is the one. Whoever remembers at the time of death, he attains me. After mentioning that, Krishna goes the generality of death. He says, what if I don't remember you? Then Krishna is saying, whatever you think of at the time of death, that you will be in your next life without fail. And he gives the example of Maharaj Bharat in his purport of how Maharaj Bharat gave up everything. He gave up the control of this whole world. People are trying to cling on to the office for 4 years or 5 years or 7 years, and somehow or other desperately try to pull. But please understand that Maharaj Bharat was the king of the entire world, and he didn't have to worry about re-elections and campaigns and funds and judiciary and so on and so forth. And he just gave up everything, and he went to the forest to perform austerities. And I'll just keep the story short. And then in the forest, it so happened, long story short, it so happened that he was obliged to take care of a deer. Rather, he felt obligated. He was not obliged. He felt obligated to take care of a deer. And then by and by, he became so attached to the deer that at the end of his life, he actually began to think of the deer. He was quite advanced in the spiritual practices up till then, but due to this unfortunate diversion of getting attached to a deer, in the next life, he again became a deer. But by grace of Krishna, he remembered why he became a deer, and he was very cautious in that life. And after giving up the deer's body, he became the great and famous character or the sage Jada Bharat in the Srimad Bhagavatam pages. So, and if one is, so one has to be really careful. If one is too attached to certain things, and especially in the modern context, people have so many things to be attached to, and very common among them being, pets and so on and so forth. If one gets too much attached to one's pets, um, and gives up the body in that connection, and then in the next life you will become that pet without a fail. So one should be really careful to make sure that we regulate our attachment in any form, shape, or fashion. One other point, and somebody asked in the past also, it is not that you just think of them, it will happen. It is your whole consciousness is absorbed in that. Sometimes you can feel that, any major event happens or any major thing happens, then somehow or other you are thinking of that. You can't help thinking of that. Your whole state of being is in that. That is what is called tatra tadbhava bhavanta. You are in that consciousness. Your whole being or consciousness is invested in that particular thing. That one should be careful of. One more example here is that in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 4th canto, there is Prachina Barhi, Maharaj Prachina Barhi. And he thinks of his wife. He's so absorbed in thinking of his wife. In the next birth, he becomes a woman. So, so there are a few examples like that. Okay, Lalita Mataji, your turn.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna, and at the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt.
Thank you. Here, I think sometimes the devotees ask, how is it possible? Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayarpita manobuddhir mame vaishyasi asamshayaha. That how can I think of Krishna and act? For example, I'll pick on the students, so please don't forgive me for that. Vijay Krishna might think, I have to think of Krishna and then I have to study. It's hard to do. How can I do this? So the way one can, or for that matter of time, Ankita Mataji might be thinking, just at my job, should I just listen to bhajans and read Bhagavatam and sneak into a conference room and chant Hare Krishna instead of actually, and when my boss comes, we can just, the idea here is one way, there are many ways to do that, but one way to remember Krishna is that activities are mine, results are his. And so we give some result or we act for some end goal and we work our best towards it. But then when the results actually come, you say, Krishna, thank you. This happened because of you. And if it didn't happen, then we say, Krishna, thank you. So there is that communion with Krishna, when the work is going on. It's one way, there are many ways. And then the highest possible way is the gopis of Vrindavan. It is mentioned they are the perfect in terms of thinking of Krishna. They were so-called illiterate women, so-called village and rural women who had no serious formal learning. And they were just either milking the cows, taking care of children, cooking, cleaning, doing the normal householder work any homemaker makes. But they were so absorbed in Krishna 24 hours a day that the activities were going on one side, but their remembrance was Krishna was completely intense. So we can reach that stage, but on a very practical level, we can at least correlate our results with Krishna. Instead of thinking we are doing the results, our results are because of my effort, we can say, Krishna, thank you. Maybe you have some lesson for me that I couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve. Or thank you, Krishna, for giving me the strength, the ability, and just the good fortune to achieve what I achieved. So we'll do a few more verses and then we can take questions.
Next is Shama Bhakta Prabhu, then Ujjwala Rasa Mataji, and then Priyanka Mataji.
He who meditates on me as Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, he, O Pratha, is sure to reach me.
Thank you. So here, Krishna in the 8th verse, he talks of pure devotion to Krishna, pure devotion unto himself. He says that you don't have to go anywhere, Mataji. Krishnangi Mataji, just keep the screen where you are. Okay, thank you. Text 9, please. And then Krishna says, so these particular verses from 9 through 13, what is called the yogic way of remembering Krishna, which is like, it is called Mishra Bhakti, which means Bhakti is mixed with Jnana, and then how do you remember Krishna for those? And then here it is mentioned how to remember Krishna like that. So please, yeah, text 9.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Text 9. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he should, who is the oldest, who is controller, who is smallest than the smallest, smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is conceivable, who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and he is transcendental beyond this manifest material nature.
Thank you. Actually, Srila Prabhupada writes, thank you. He writes in the purport that Krishna is Achintya, that even though he creates everything and he controls everything, still he is beyond it. So it's pretty inconceivable. So yeah, text 10, please.
One who, at the time of death, fixes his life air between the eyebrows and by the strength of yoga, with an undeviating mind, engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord in full devotion, will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you. So here, part of the Ashtanga Yoga or the Dhyana Yoga that's mentioned in 6 is what is called the Shat Chakra Yoga, which is raising the life airs through different locations in the body, and fixing the life air between the eyebrows is what is called Agya Chakra. That the life airs are here. I mean, it is from the base of spine to the root of the genitals, to the navel, to the heart, to the throat. And the 6th position is here. And the 7th is from the Brahmarandra one gives up, which you can see in the pictures in the Bhagavad Gita, where you can see that yogi is there and the soul is leaving from the top. So that is what is being mentioned here. But the beautiful point that Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport is, here the word yoga balena is used, which means that either by the strength of the Ashtanga Yoga or by the strength of Bhakti Yoga, one has to transcend this. Without that yoga bala, which means without that the strength of yoga, it will be impossible to cross over this ocean of existence. That's what is mentioned here. Text 11.
So next is Rampriya Prabhu, then Ankita Mataji, and then Upasana Mataji.
Okay. Text 11, translation. Persons who are learned in the Vedas, who utter Omkara, and who are great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now briefly explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation.
Thank you. Next verse, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Arival Ankita Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Text 12. The yogic situation is that of detachment from all sensual engagements, closing all the doors of the senses and fixing the mind on the heart and the life air. At the top of the head, one establishes himself in yoga. Thank you.
13.
Hare Krishna. After being situated in this yoga practice and vibrating the sacred syllable Om, the supreme combination of letters, if one thinks of the supreme personality of Godhead and quits his body, he will certainly reach the spiritual planets.
Thank you. So these set of verses, they talk of the yoga, or how the yogi, by the strength of the Ashtanga yoga, is able to raise the life airs through the different chakras of the body, and who is celibate, who utters the Omkara, who is well versed in Vedas. So these are all some prerequisites or pre-qualifications. And then you will reach the spiritual planets, which is one way of doing things, which is bhakti, which is mixed with other forms of yoga. So it's called Mishra Yoga, these particular set of verses. But for the next few verses, Krishna is saying, you want the, if you don't want that kind of tough road, and in Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport that in the modern times, it's a beautiful purport that he writes, in the modern times, the social structure is such that it's impossible to think of. When the boy is born, then at age of 5, he leaves his parents and goes to Gurukula, and spends like 25 years of celibacy at this point of time, at least in the Western world. Maybe in India, we do still have some places where it's happening, but by and large, it's difficult. So the easy part, or the how one can achieve Krishna, is mentioned in the text 14. Please go ahead. This is
for one who
okay. Actually, before you guys through, there's Mrigakshi Vishnupriya Mataji wanted to read, and then Gayatri, and then Sham Karuna Mataji.
That's okay, Prabhu. Let Gayatri read. I can read after that.
Okay, you can go after then. Wait, Gayatri, you can read, and then Mrigakshi Vishnupriya Mataji.
For one who always remembers me without deviation, I am easy to obtain, O son of Pritha, because of this constant engagement in devotional service.
Thank you. So here Krishna is saying the same goal is achieved by my unalloyed devotees. He says, Ananya chetata satatam yomam smarati nityashaha tasyaham sulabha pata nitya yuktasya yoginaha. He says that for those who undeviatedly worship me, for those whose minds are just fixed in me alone, and that too constantly, nityashaha. One of the things that comes up is that, oh man, to have to like chant every day. I mean, what about it? What about once a week? Once in 3 days? Why every day? And then Krishna says Nitya Shaha, and Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport every day. And in fact, it's mentioned that every moment is good, but since we cannot do it every moment, at least we can do every day. So there is that every day. And Krishna says, for those who are absorbed in me in every day, or rather Nityashaha, or in a one deviated way, and he says Sulabhaha, and it's not Durlabhaha. Durlabhaha is very difficult. And Krishna says Sulabhaha, I'm very easy to attain. And so that's why we are indebted to his divine grace, Srila Prabhupada, that he came to this world, and because empowered by Krishna, and he gave the same mercy and the same devotion that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted in the age of Kali Yuga to follow. So we are doing the least work in terms of the yoga, and we are getting the highest benefit. That is, and Krishna is confirming that. Tasyam sulabha pata, I'm easy to obtain. And the same thing is used also in Brahma Samhita. Vedeshu durlabha, adurlabha atma bhakta, govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. That if you are following the path of the Vedas and going through the cycles, even then Krishna is durlabha, really difficult to obtain. But Atma Bhakta means that those unalloyed devotees, Adurlabha is not at all difficult. So that is the beauty of spiritual life or pure devotional service unto Krishna. We get Krishna. Text 15, please.
Hare Krishna. After
Hare Krishna.
attaining me, the great soul who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection.
Thank you, Matthew. And for the next few verses, actually Krishna talks about how this particular material world is not a nice place to hang around. And we can see time and again, especially in time of COVID, we can see that things can happen really fast. Things can change really quickly. And yeah, text 16.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat
From
pranam.
the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, all are places of misery wherein repeated birth and death take place. But one who attains to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. And so Krishna is not distinguishing. He's saying that what's the point? He might say, hey, material world, spiritual world, I'm happy here. Who knows what? The Krishna is saying, no, once you come back to me, the life will be much better, in the material world, because you don't belong here. The jiva or the atma has no connection with matter. In fact, it's a forced connection that is being made. Krishna is saying, don't loiter around with this material. Don't linger around here. There's not much to gain. I mean, you can get some sort of very, very fleeting pleasures, very, very fleeting feelings of power and prestige and opulence and importance. But nevertheless, they are all just the activities of Maya. They are just the activities that make you feel that you are the king, but ultimately, it's just going to come to an end. So Krishna is saying, don't think that in any form, shape, or fashion there is permanent happiness here. And then there is so much of anxiety just for that tiny bit of happiness that the jiva gets in this world. There is so much of hard work. There is so much of anxiety. There is so much of guilt and remorse. It's not a happy state of existence. So Krishna is saying, he's exhorting time and again, please don't waste time here. Just come back to me. And then he gives, even when he says, A Brahma Bhuvanan Loka Punaravartinojana, when he talks of Brahma Loka, then he gets into a little bit more of Brahma's time scale and how that happens. So text 17, please.
So next is Akash Prabhu, then Avanish, then Divyanand Prabhu.
Text 17. By human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together form the duration of Brahma's one day, and such also is the duration of his night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Text 18. At the beginning of Brahma's day, all living entities become manifest from the unmanifest state, and thereafter, when the night falls, they are merged into the unmanifest again.
Thank you. Text 19.
Text 19. Again and again, when Brahma's day arrives, all living entities come into being, and with the arrival of Brahma's night, they are helplessly annihilated. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Divyananda Prabhu.
Taruna Pranams Prabhu.
Dandavat pranam. So there are three kinds of planetary systems in the universe. Not the planets itself, but the planetary systems. They are the upper, the middle, and the lower planetary systems. The Earth, or the Bhumandala where we are, it belongs to the middle planetary system. This is a place where we are on the edge, literally on the edge of the lower planetary systems or the higher planetary systems. So for those who perform pious activities, they can go to the higher planetary systems. And from Bhu to Var, Swar, Mahar, Tapa, Jana, and Satyaloka. That is the order. And the Satyaloka, or the planet of Brahma, is the highest place within the realm of this universe. And as we go higher and higher, the lifespan actually increases. And the lower also, we do have more and more degraded kind of cultures that are living. We have, demons, and then in the Patal Loka, the Nagas live. If you think that, this material world is like that, you can see more and more vicious behaviors as you go down. And in the middle sphere, the human being has a choice to go up or to go down. And when we go up to the higher planetary systems, we go to the planet of Brahmaloka, the lifespan also increases. And we can see that Brahma lives for 311 trillion, 40 billion years, according to the lifespan of the Earth. It seems to be an infinitely long time compared to what the human beings live. The standard of living is much higher in Brahmaloka, and only very, very exalted souls can achieve Brahmaloka. In Brahmaloka, again, every stage here in the upper planetary systems, you do have a choice. The enjoyment is better, the senses will be much more stronger, the facilities are much higher. In the Indraloka, it's amazing. You have your own airplane. Now, a person here, we have one car, which we can kind of take around. A lot of work. You have to maintain the car. You have to fill gas, or you have to charge the car, depending on what type of stuff you have. And it's just subject to a very limited sphere of rotation. But in heavenly planets, you have your own plane, and so on and so forth. And then gradually upward and upward, you aspire to go to Brahmaloka. And Brahmaloka, good Lord, that is really amazing. You just have huge lifespan. Like, Brahma has, like I said, 311 trillion years, 40 billion years. And things seem pretty good, This is ultimately it. But it is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam that one lifespan of Brahma is nothing but Lord Vishnu. He lives, he's lying on the Anantanag in the Karanodakshai ocean. In his one breath, one whole lifespan of Brahma comes and goes. So even aspiring to go to the highest planet in the material world, still the miseries of birth, death, and the time, it doesn't change. It becomes more and more refined. Therefore, our only focus is, how do we actually return back to the lotus feet of Sri Krishna? How can we mold our lives? And the golden opportunity that we have been given to perform pure devotional service to Krishna, that can attract Krishna, that can draw Krishna into our heart. How can we do that? Will be like the greatest success of human life would be that. We have seen how no matter how much you get in this material world, you are still miserable. A person can be born or be a billionaire. He might have married 2 or 3 times and had enjoyed women throughout his life. He may have become the president of one of the biggest countries of the world, the most powerful countries of the world. Each of them itself is a very opulent thing, but having all together in one life, yet still one can be miserable at the end of one's life with complete anxiety. And it's just not just nothing. This is basically It's insignificant and useless compared to the supreme happiness and the supreme joy that the human life which we have today can make use and go back to Krishna. So, and that's what Krishna is inviting. He says in the next few verses. So let's read those verses, please.
So next is Aname, then Sukharupa Mataji, then Santosh Prabhu.
Thank you.
So do I read the 19th verse or 20th? Okay. So yet there's
20th Aname. Thank you.
Yet there is another unmanifest nature, which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is.
Thank you. Next verse, please.
Hare Krishna, this is Ashray Madhav.
Dandavat
Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think we missed one verse 21 maybe.
Yes, Mataji. 21 is not read.
You want me to read? I can read 21 also.
Yes, sure. You can read. Yes, please.
That which the Vedantis describe as unmanifest and infallible, that which is known as the supreme destination, that place from which, having attained it, one never returns, that is my supreme abode.
Thank you. So Krishna, he gives in these few verses the nature of his abode. And I think that is the best aspiration. That is the best goal. In our lives, how much ever we do or how much ever we don't do, ultimately the success, because it was an interesting question. Today morning we were having Bhakti Vaibhava class, and one of the devotees asked the question, spiritual life actually, or reading the scriptures, we reset the definition of the things that people think are important in this world. For example, what is education or what is knowledge? And then how do you define success or how do you define happiness? All these things actually take on a whole other meaning when we come to spiritual life. Is it just me, or is that something that people do think about?
I think that is a very nice way of putting it, Srivasa Prabhu. Yes. Our outlook towards life changes. Yeah, that's excellent point.
Thank you. And thank you, Sukarpa Prabhu and Ashram Prabhu. The idea here is that Krishna is saying this is the success in the human form of life. Somehow or other, if you can, and then you might think I am making it up. If we look in second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the first chapter, the very first chapter, Shukdev Goswami says, Etavan Sankhya Yoga Abhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya. Let me look up that verse. It's in second canto of Bhagavatam, and in the first chapter, and it's called second canto, first chapter, sixth verse. It's okay, Mate, if you can't project it, that's fine. Keep it on chapter 8. I'll just read that verse and devotees can look up offline. It's second canto, first chapter, and sixth verse. Etavan Sankhya Yoga Bhyam Swadharma Parinishtaya Janmalabha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smritihi. In this Shukadeva Goswami, he says, what is your labh, or what is the profit that you can make from this janma or this human life? He says the highest perfection of human life achieved either by complete knowledge of matter or spirit, or by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life, which brings up the same topic that we are discussing, that how to remember Krishna at the end of life. So that is the success of human life, period. Everything else will come, everything else will stay, everything else will go. It all depends on Krishna. While the events of life do take, do affect us. Don't get me wrong. We don't become stones by any stretch of imagination. But because of the strength of our spiritual knowledge, we are able to withstand. We are able to discern what is reality versus what is temporary reality that will pass. That is not going to be relevant in the long run at all. So, chapter 8, Mate. We'll go back to that same thing. The second tab. No, the second tab. Okay. So, Krishna, you have to do which verse?
Yeah, can
no problems. No problems. Take your time. No rush. No rush.
So just a reminder, next is Santosh Prabhu, and then it's Nitya Tarangini Mataji.
Okay. So the next few verses, Krishna talks about, I can, do you want me to share the screen, Sangi Mataji, or are you going to do that?
I'm just opening it.
Okay, no problem, Mataji. Just wanted to double check. That's it. So we are 22 verse, right? So while Mataji is doing, why don't we take some questions? I think we covered enough. So let's open up for some questions, and then we can ask some questions, and before we can go ahead.
So Prabhu.
Yes, Mate.
When we were talking about that, you take a birth again, what you think of, and that time you will be like. So when a person is very attached to the kids, like he's always very attached to their kid or something, what happens for that reasons?
You'll take a human form of life, probably as a relative of that said person. Usually, in India we have this, the father becoming the son of the child, and so on and so forth. So usually that happens. It's a deep affection. Then again, you will be born in the human form of life. If you're attached to the house, then Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport or in one of the purports of Nectar of Instruction, that there was a very rich man, very rich man. Yeah, you read that, right? Okay, good.
No, but please go ahead. I was just remembering that story when you were talking about the Jad Bharata story.
Yeah. No, I'll give it in a nutshell. So there was a very rich man who was attached to his family a lot, and then maybe to his house also. So in the next birth, he was born as a cobbler, and he lived right across that palatial house that he owned in the previous life. And when he went to this former house, to this former sons, they actually beat him with the slippers. So the whole idea here is that if I'm attached like that, but I don't have the necessary pious activity to become rich again, then I'll be born in the same place, but as a really destitute person. So it all depends.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Amit Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. That was Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I have a question. It's kind of, first of all, I'm trying to validate my understanding, and then based on that, I would go with the question. So my understanding that came out from today's session is that there are two paths, but I think the path that is relevant for us is that we need to work towards during our life in such a way that at the end of our life, whenever that comes, we are thinking of Krishna so that we can go attain supreme. Now, there is a very common saying that whatever karma you have, some of the results or part of the results would come back to you in this life, the current life itself. But I think reading today's chapter makes one think that the way Krishna is really organizing thing is that the life is like a whole year, and then there is the end of the year exam, which is at the time of death. If you don't pass that exam, you don't go to a good class. So it's like, whatever good or bad you do, it's basically the end of the semester or end of the year exam that matters. There is no kind of quiz or exams and during the year.
No,
Is that
yeah,
a good understanding, or like,
it's a perfect understanding. In fact, Krishna will not. The idea of destiny is, Amit Prabhu, Krishna is saying, in this life, I'm going to set you a quota. Based on the past, I'm going to give you the class in this life, and this is your, this is who you will be. This is how much you will achieve. This is the suffering this is the quota I have given you for this life based on your past karma. In this life, he doesn't interfere. He says, okay, do whatever you need to do. In the next life, I will give you what needs to be done. In an exceptionally rare case, but for the devotees, he might give instantaneous karma, because he might say, because you have surrendered unto me, I might give you the karma so that you can come back to me quickly. Case in point is Maharaj Parikshit. He did that, and then Krishna said, your life is enough. Now, because I'll make his son curse you, and then I'll send Sukadeva Goswami to you. For 7 days, you will hear Bhagavatam, and then you are done. You have achieved perfection. So he might, based on karmani nirdhati kinchit bhakti badam, for those who are saying, God, I don't care, then he'll say, okay, beta. So you will get this much for this time, this much for this time, and the life will continue like that. But if you have surrendered unto me, then I'll take away all your bad karma and your good karma. You are supposed to be a king. I'll make sure that you just become, if you are supposed to be the president of USA, you will just become a congressman, because I have taken off your karma. And then also you are supposed to die with a deadly cancer. I'll make sure that it's a common cold. But in that way, I'll adjust your karma because you have surrendered onto me, and I will make arrangements for you to come back to me. So for those who take shelter of Krishna, Prabhu, other factors will take less, like jitna bhi ho, whatever, like astrological stuff and all that will take less. Is that helpful?
It does. I think that's good. So then the follow-up, Prabhuji, is like, this is typical of like, the cultures in India, like, you always have the Karam Kandis who are looking for a shortcut to kind of achieve some sort of a temporary success within this life.
Yeah.
So, and I'm trying to reconcile that with this quota-based system that, okay, Krishna has said, hey, you can study however you want. I'm not going to give you marks during the year, but I'm going to give you the marks or the results end of the life itself. But
Right.
there is still a path where, people do XYZ, or at least seek XYZ to accelerate their successes in this life itself. Is that all myth? Or is that just Karam Kandi business part of it, nothing to do with the scriptures or the guidance that is given by Krishna?
Excellent question, Amit Prabhu. I really like it. So those who know a little bit of more knowledge, they will say, oh, so basically this is just like a criminal who wants to find out the loopholes of the law system. I have to go to jail, but if I can find a loophole to either reduce or change it, let me use that. So they know a little bit of knowledge where they say, this is my destiny, but how to overcome destiny without surrendering to God? To karma kanda activities. That activities of worshipping the demigods, if done properly in proper time, with proper sages, with proper ingredients, that will create the good fortune for this life. That is why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, those who are really passionate and who want to like get wealth and all that, they worship the demigods for quick success, because that is the loophole. Krishna says you can do it. Perfect.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
And thank you. And then you get that, and Krishna says whatever you get will be just for this lifetime only, because demigods are temporary. The fruits of they give is temporary, but you will be more and more implicated. The problem is that cancer that you are supposed to die, which could have propelled you to surrender further to Krishna, now because you are saying, okay, demigods, you have helped me to reduce from that cancer to a common cold. Next time, I know the faith again becomes more and more stronger in the demigods, and you'll go away and away from Krishna. So that is the danger in that kind of thing. But Krishna is saying, do it.
Makes sense, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the transcendental loophole, Amit Prabhu, to overcome the karmic quota that is being said by Krishna.
Makes sense.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I have one question, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Prabhuji, as we know that we have karma in this life, and how do we know that in the next life we have done this? Because Krishna never revealed us what is the past, what it has happened, and everything. But in this life, we are suffering and we are connecting to all these things. How do we know that, Prabhuji?
When you say how do we know, means like how can I
Yeah, how can I know that how that past life I have done this kind of thing? Because we never seen what is the past. We never see the God also, but we has be believing in the books, and this all these things we are it's given in the books, the past, present, and future. But how can we know that it's happened everything? How can we believe, Prabhuji?
I mean, so to paraphrase, okay. Your question, let me paraphrase this so I know I understand it better. So what you're trying to say, Mataji, is that how do I know? I have not seen the past. I have not lived in the past, or rather, I don't have information of the past. How can I believe that all these activities that are happening to me in this life are a result of my past activities? Did I phrase your question correctly?
Yes, Prabhuji. And how do I believe the God also? I mean, just how the scriptures are written in all kind of things. Means Vyasadeva and all this, they wrote it all these things. But how we should believe all these things, Prabhuji? Because sometimes I'm getting that kind of doubts also. So that's what I want to clear it out.
You know, COVID, everybody's at home. Nobody's going out or driving. But I know a few of us remember the good old days where we used to actually drive and go to work. And every day morning you have to turn on the car and go to work. Just anybody, I hope nobody thought like that. But did anybody think in the morning, starting the car, saying, today I'll have a fatal accident? I want to have a fatal accident, or I'll have... No, nobody thinks like that. Did anybody actually, in COVID time, everybody is so careful. Everybody is like, I don't want to go here, or I don't want to, be with that group because of the COVID. Yes or yes? Nobody is saying, where is the most potent variant of COVID in the world? Let me go jump in that place and get some COVID. Nobody thinks like that. The idea here is, if everybody wants the positive thing to happen, Anuradha Mataji, but we see even against their own will, they will see negative things happen to them. Yes or yes? Is that a common experience that you have experienced, Mataji, or is it just me?
Yes, Prabhuji.
So the question then comes is, who, in spite of my best efforts, is giving me this negative situations in my life that I don't want? I did so careful to avoid, but yet I'm getting it. There must be some person, because it is not me. I did my best. I did my best to avoid COVID. I was supremely careful, yet I got it. How? So the fact is that there is certain power that is actually giving the good and bad, or some power, some being, some force of the universe. You can name it. From a non-devotee perspective, everybody is even believing in it. Even the Western world, karma is a big term now, right now. Yes or yes? Lalita Madhavi Mataji. Everywhere you hear the word karma, and and then the common thing is what goes around and comes around. Yes or yes?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Karma, yoga, mantra, guru, these have become common even in the Western world, and they are realizing the fact that there is something that kind of gives. So if karma, what goes around comes around, there must be some power or some authority, some force that is actually doing it to you. I don't want it. I'm being forced, which means there is somebody. Yes or yes? I mean, if I'm going on the road freely, I want to go like 150 miles per hour. The police will come and stop you and give you a ticket, which means that there is a higher force that is governing your driving speed on the road. In the same way, as we go on the path of life, There is somebody who's giving all this, good or bad. Man, I didn't even, this fellow. Actually, if you had said either Bill Gates or Larry Ellison or any rich people, they dropped out of the college. At that point of time, you would have said to them, these people are losers. Yes or yes? Who would have said, oh my God, you did the wonderful thing dropping out of Harvard. What a genius you are. Anybody would have said that? Or if your own children will drop out of the college, you will not say that. The idea is, but how come they became such powerful people? They became this destiny. So, so the karma is something that is imperceptibly acting on everybody, Anuradha Mataji, which means that the good and bad will come, and then consequently the logic dictates that the past, good or bad, is kind of thing that's coming to me. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhuji.
And consequent, but the best part is when one surrenders to Krishna, one breaks this bondage of material existence, which is in the form of karma. This karma is the one that binds a person, but when one surrenders to Krishna, Krishna says that this karma is completely destroyed. In fact, in the Chaurashtakam, it said, Yadiya namapi haratya sesham. It is a Yadiya namapi haratya sesham. Giri prasaram api paparasham. Ascharya rupo nanu choraidre. Prishta shrito vanamayatrayepi. He says that Yadiya namapi haratya sesham, that even just merely uttering one name of Krishna, Giri Prasharan Apipaparashin, like your sins, which are like huge mountains, are blown up. Imagine having like a big explosion, seeing a huge mountain, and then you are digging a tunnel in the mountain below the surface, and you are putting some huge, powerful explosives. And then when you touch it, boom, the whole mountain goes into thing. That is what is happening when you chant the names of Krishna every single day. Now the mountains and mountains of sins are being destroyed. That is the power of holy name of Krishna. So as devotees, we have that unique position to destroy our karma way faster than all the other yogis and jnanis and other forms of yogas. Is that okay, Anuradha Mataji?
Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Yes, more questions. All right, let's complete the chapter, and then we can take more questions. We have the luxury of time today. So after mentioning about his abode, Krishna talks about the ways in which the yogis pass away from this world. So the translations, please, and pages.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading and everything is situated within him.
Thank you. Text 23.
Next is Nitya Tarangini Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, the yogi does or does not come back.
24.
Okay, Prana Govika Mataji can read, but if anybody else also wants to read, they can put their name in the chat.
Or pages will call them randomly.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dandot Pranam. Text 25, 24, translation or 25?
No, text 24 translation, please.
Yeah. Text 24 translation. Those who know the Supreme Brahman attain the Supreme by passing away from the world. During the influence of the fiery God, In the light, at an auspicious moment of the day, during the fortnight of the waxing moon, or during the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. Hare Krishna. Thank
you. Next.
So next is Nitish Prabhu, and then Shilpa Mataji and Swapna Mataji.
Wonderful.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the fortnight of the waning moon, or the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, reaches the moon planet, but again comes back.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Is it my turn, Prabhuji?
I don't know.
It's supposed to be Shilpa Mataji's, but I don't know if she's there.
Yeah, I can read, Prabhuji. According to Vedic opinion, there are two ways of passing from this world, one in night and one in darkness. When one passes in the light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns.
Thank you. The last verse. This verse, and then this one, and then we'll stop and do a little explanation, and then we'll go to the last verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Although the devotees know these two paths, O Arjuna, they are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So, for those who are on the path of yoga, and earlier as we were discussing of how those yogis who are able to raise the life airs through the different stages of their body, they have certain restrictions, or they have certain considerations on when they can give up the body. And Krishna explains that those who have there's a very specific thing, it's Uttarayana, it's Shukla Paksha, and so on and so forth. And for those, they kind of do not come back. But if you pass away during the other side, which is the Dakshanayana and Krishna Paksha and so on and so forth, then they will come back. But as devotees, and Srila Prabhupada writes that in the purport, towards the end he says that for the devotees, the consideration is not there about the time, because Krishna just mentioned earlier in the chapter that whoever thinks of me at the time of death, he comes to me. And Krishna at that point of time doesn't specify that you need to pass in certain time. So as devotees, we don't have to worry too much about what time we pass or what time is auspicious, but rather our worry should be how can we remember Krishna? It's the same thing we said in the Bhagavatam, where we discussed the second canto, first chapter in the 6th verse, Etavan Sankhya Yoga Bhyam Sadharma Parinishtaya Janma Labha Parapumsam Ante Narayana Smriti. There also the time is not mentioned. It is, and in fact, Shukadeva Goswami, he encourages Maharaj Parikshit that because you are a devotee of Krishna, you just think of Krishna at the time of death. There is no question of time at this point. He doesn't never said throughout the Bhagavatam, I'll keep reciting Bhagavatam till we reach a certain good time, and then now you can depart. He just had fixed time, and then that fixed time, Shukadeva Goswami encouraged Maharaj Parikshit, just remember Krishna, that's it. So, so as devotees, we don't have to worry too much about our timing. In fact, we can't even control on a strict level, when we can or when we cannot give up our body. We don't have the same kind of boon as Lord Bhishmadev had. One last thing, because one of the things is the 7th on to the 12th chapter they constitute what is called Bhakti Yoga or devotional service. And one of the apprehensions that devotees have is, if I do Bhakti Yoga, then am I not missing out on all the other benefits from the other yoga system? And what does Krishna answer to that? And it's mentioned in the 28th verse. Let's please do that. And then we can so who is supposed to read? Sitarani Mataji, or is there somebody before that?
Yes, I think me only, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. Translation. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the result derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charities, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attained all these, and at the end, he reached the supreme eternal abode. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Here it's very clear that Krishna is saying that a devotee is never bereft of it. And let's, if you go up, if you can do the purport, Krishna Mataji, for the last one, if you go up a little bit, you can click on the verse itself. See, if, yeah, on the text 28, if you can just click. Yeah, you can just go there. That's good. So we can actually go down here. And can I ask any devotee to read the first paragraph, please?
Sure, Prabhuji, I can. This verse is the summation of the 7th and 8th chapters, which particularly deal with Krishna consciousness and devotional service. One has to study the Vedas under the guidance of the spiritual master and undergo many austerities and penances while living under his care. A brahmachari has to live in the home of the spiritual master just like a servant, and he must beg alms from door to door and bring them to the spiritual master. He takes food only under the master's order, and if the master neglects to call the student for food that day, the student fasts. These are some of the Vedic principles for observing brahmacharya.
Thank you, Matthew. Rohini, you're there. Can you please do the next paragraph, please?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
After the student studies the Vedas under the master for some time, at least from age 5 to 20, he becomes a man of perfect character. Study of the Vedas is not meant for the recreation of armchair speculators, but for the formation of character. After this training, the brahmachari is allowed to enter into household life and marry. When he is a householder, he has to perform many sacrifices so that he may achieve further enlightenment. He must also give charity according to the country, time, and candidate, discriminating among charity and goodness in passion and in ignorance, as described in Bhagavad Gita. Then after retiring from household life, upon accepting the order of Vanaprastha, he undergoes severe penances, living in forests, dressing with tree bark, not shaving, etc. By carrying out the orders of brahmacharya, household life, vanaprastha, and finally sannyas, one becomes elevated to the perfectional stage of life. Some are then elevated to the heavenly kingdoms, and when they become even more advanced, they are liberated in the spiritual sky, either in the impersonal Brahma Jyotir or in the Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. This is the path outlined by Vedic literatures.
Thank you, Rohini. So, easy path, no? Not very difficult. It's for those, what Vedas are all about. These two paragraphs, they actually, Srila Prabhupada, he summarizes the whole Vedic process in a nutshell in this. From this particular, the beauty is in these two paragraphs. He talks about varnashrama, he talks about jnana, he talks about dhyana, and then the scary part is that after finally sannyasa, then some of them are elevated to heavenly kingdoms. After doing all this, it's not tasyaham sulabha partha. It is you get heavenly kingdom, which is a powerful thing. Please don't get me wrong, but nevertheless, it's not the ultimate goal of life. Or if you are even more perfect, then you can either enter the impersonal jyoti or Vaikuntha planet or Krishna Loka. Krishna Loka, it will happen, but again, you'll need some. Is it immediate? Probably not. And then the next paragraph. Let's go to the next paragraph. And can I ask Shruti Priya Mataji just to read the next paragraph?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
The word idam vid.
No, the beauty.
Sorry.
The beauty.
Oh, sorry. The beauty of Krishna consciousness, however, is that by one stroke, by engaging in devotional service, one can surpass all the rituals of the different orders of life.
Thank you, Mataji. So, which would one take? Which seems to be a better deal here? Vijay Krishna, what do you think? Avanish, are there?
Yes, Prabhuji.
What do you think is a better choice?
Could you repeat the options again, Prabhu?
No, it's okay, Avanish. I didn't mean to put you on spot. I didn't mean to put you on spot. That's okay. Maybe I should ask who wants to give an answer. Let me put it that way.
Devotional service, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Shruti Priya Mataji. Thank you for saying it. It's wonderful. Yeah, your name itself is saying Shruti is the Vedic literatures, and amongst that Vedic literatures, they love Krishna, so we better love Krishna then. So, and then we'll read one more paragraph, and then let's see who didn't get a chance to read till now, and who wants to read.
I can read, Prabhuji.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
The words idam viditva indicate that one should understand the instructions given by Sri Krishna in this chapter and the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. One should try to understand these chapters not by scholarship or mental speculation, but by hearing them in association with devotees. Chapters 7 through 12 are the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The first 6 and the last 6 chapters are like covering for the middle 6 chapters, which are especially protected by the Lord. If one is fortunate enough to understand Bhagavad Gita, especially these middle 6 chapters, in the association of devotees, then his life at once becomes glorified beyond all penances, sacrifices, charities, speculations, etc. For one can achieve all the results of these activities simply by Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Mataji. Just to add, the first 6 chapters broadly are Karma Yoga, and I did remember that quite few devotees did mention that the first 6 chapters are classified as. You can unmute yourself.
Karma Shataka.
Karma Yoga.
Thank you, Triloki Mataji. And then the next 6 chapters are
Bhakti Yoga.
Bhakti Yoga.
Thank you, Ramajit. And then the last 6?
Jnana Yoga.
Jnana Yoga.
So here is the question though. Shouldn't it be that you have to ascending order and descending order, but Bhakti is highest, but why is it stuck in the middle though?
It's like that jelly in between the 2 pieces of bread. much sweeter.
Ramajit, thank you.
Prabhu, what I'm kind of reminded of is like in the 7th canto, Like,
yeah,
the overall like structure of it is that there's like the whole gatha about Prahlad Maharaj, and then like after that, it like Yudhishthir Maharaj, like he asks about like Varnashram Dharma and everything else, and like it's kind of like placing the ideal first, and then like because the ideal is also very difficult at times, so placing like I guess easier or like something that's more fathomable to understand basically.
thank you.
Is it Prabhuji, can I try?
Yes, go ahead. You can just.
So yeah, I heard it somewhere that because bhakti is very precious and very important, so that's why Prabhupada, Krishna has placed it in the middle, like protecting on both sides with karma and jnana.
Wonderful, thank you. That's a nice realization. And one last point I'll make. Yes, Bhumika Mataji, you want to go for it.
No, I was just thinking maybe it's because bhakti with knowledge is better than bhakti alone, so probably it's leads to transcendence.
Excellent, all very excellent points. But Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually he says that karma, bhakti and jnana, the bhakti is actually touching both jnana on this side and then karma on this side, because neither of karma or jnana can actually be successful without a mixture of bhakti in it. So, and one last point is bhakti is independent in the sense like bhakti can give both jnana and vairagya. Vasudeve bhagavati bhakti yoga prayojitaha janayatyashu vairagyam jnanam chayadahaidukim. So bhakti is independent, but nevertheless the others are dependent. So that is the explanation Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives. But thank you so much. I really appreciated the wonderful discussions that we had on that point. So by that, I think we can just do the last paragraph, and then we can stop here. All right. Then we can ask who can read. Sindhu Kanya, can you do the last paragraph, please? Sindhu Kanya, are you there? Okay. Then who else is there? Timir, please do the last paragraph and then we can stop.
One who has a little faith in Bhagavad Gita should learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee, because in the beginning of the 4th chapter it is stated clearly that Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by devotees. No one else can perfectly understand the purpose of Bhagavad Gita. One should therefore learn Bhagavad Gita from a devotee of Krishna, not from mental speculators. This is a sign of faith. When one searches for a devotee and fortunately gets a devotee's association, one actually begins to study and understand Bhagavad Gita. By advancement in the association of the devotee, one is placed in devotional service, and this service dispels all one's misgivings about Krishna or God, and Krishna's activities, form, pastimes, name, and other features. After these misgivings have been perfectly cleared away, one becomes fixed in one study. Then one relishes the study of Bhagavad Gita and attains the state of feeling always Krishna conscious. In the advanced stage, one falls completely in love with Krishna. This highest perfectional stage of life enables the devotee to be transferred to Krishna's abode in the spiritual sky, Goloka Vrindavan, where the devotee becomes eternally happy.
Thank you. Do the devotees have time to discuss a little bit? Last class, I think they just brought up, and we had this interesting discussion about Jnani and how he is related. I will not waste much time going through, but for those who are interested, you can go through 10th canto, 3rd chapter, 31st verse, where the different stages of the jnana is explained, and where the jnana is called jnana, jnanamaya, and kevala bhakti. So there is intermediate stage between jnana and bhakta, a pure devotee, and the jnanamaya bhakta is somebody who is having reverence for Krishna, but at the same time, he is strong on jnana, and there are many such devotees. And Krishna is saying, amongst all these, that particular jnani is, dear to me. So just to clarify that, just to add further discussion on that. Last week we did have that interesting discussion. So
Prabhuji, can you repeat the verse?
Verse is Mate 10th canto, 3rd chapter, 31st verse. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada actually gives a little bit about the different types of devotees. If you go down a little bit, Mataji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Still more down. Little more. So yeah, up little up in that particular paragraph. So we can see here that the bhakti may be considered in 3 stages called Guni Bhuti, Pradhani Bhuti, and Kevala. According to these 3 divisions, there are which are called Jnana, Jnanamaya, or Rati, or Prema. And so we can see pure jnana, and then there is a middle stage called jnanamaya, where the devotee has further advancement. At this point of time, it is still jnana mishra bhakti. It is not pure devotion. That the Lord is saying, I'm attracted to these kind of devotees, where they realize that God is great, and I have some material desires, but nevertheless, I just want to serve Him. So I think we can have more discussion on that. This is not the perfect time to kind of have, but something to give insight. So more questions or comments on the 8th chapter, and we can. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Prabhuji, I have a question. So we just read in this chapter only that when someone is dying, if he remembers Krishna, then when he quits his body, remembering Krishna, then he attains Krishna undoubtedly. And then in Srimad Bhagavatam, like you pointed out, the story of Jad Bharat, who had lived his entire life piously, and then in the end he got attached to a deer, so he attained a deer's body in the next life. There is another story about Ajamil, how unknowingly he just called out his son's name, Narayan, and then he attained, although entire life he was not living a very pious life and was very sinful, but even then he attained Vishnu. The Vishnu Dutas came and took him. So how do we, I understand these 2 stories separately in relation to the verse, but how do we reconcile them together? Is it like Krishna is just showing the severity of remembering him at the end of the life, but how do we compare? Because one lived a very pious life and one lived a very sinful life.
Excellent question, Ankita. And the bigger question, or the bigger picture that one comes is, how do you remember Krishna? What do you call remembering Krishna? Because it can seem very vague, and it can seem like a very non-measurable function, just to add to your question. But let me address your question first, and then we can go. Ajamil's life was extremely sinful, as you so rightly pointed out. But he was born in a Brahmana family, and he had a lot of pious credits. The Brahmana was, even though he was very sinful, at the end of life, he was calling out the name of Narayana unknowingly, which caused his sins to destroy and prevented him from going to hell. It was not he was liberated at that stage of time. And then because of chanting the names of Lord Narayan, his sins got destroyed and he was able to redeem from going to hell. And then it's mentioned in Bhagavatam, he went to Haridwar. He had to further purify before he went back to Godhead. So in this case, the story merely illustrates the power of chanting the holy name of Krishna. Yadiya namapi harat yasesham, giri prasharan apipaparasham. That merely by chanting the name of Narayana, his sins were destroyed and he was prevented from going to hell. The Yamadutas and the Vishnudutas, the whole discussion was whether this person should go to hell or he shouldn't go to hell. And he didn't go to hell, but he had to go. The other thing is, not particularly Ajamil was thinking or his bhava was completely absorbed in his son to an extent. He was calling out the name of Narayan rather innocently or out of helplessness, not out of bhava. At that point of time, we should realize that son was all of 5 years old, and there was nothing that boy could do to help his father. Even if you are the most powerful of mystics, you can't do anything to help one's death. Forget a 5-year-old boy. So his whole intention was just helplessly crying out the name of Narayana. But the Vishnudutas said that, they are calling out for my Lord, just to tell the power or amplify the power of the holy name. That is the first aspect. And the second aspect is, for Maharaj Bharat, it was a conscious effort to be absorbed in the deer, and thus he became, but because he practiced yoga, he further was saved from going more and more into animal life, because it's a very risky life. Krishna actually gave him the memory to say, you know what, you wanted to get into this, now you are realizing why. And then he realized the folly. Oh my God, what did I do? Why did I do that? Is that helpful, Ankita Mataji, a little bit?
Yes, Prabhuji, that's very helpful, especially the bhava that you said, because Jada Bharat was more in bhava bhakti. So yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you. And his bhava was completely invested in deer. His whole consciousness was invested in a deer. And it can happen sometimes, especially for a newborn baby, the mother's consciousness is actually invested in the child. Day and night, it is just, is my child eaten? Is my child taken care of? Is my child having some difficulty? The whole consciousness is invested like that. So that is what is being mentioned here.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
No, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Nitya Tarangini.
Hare Krishna, Nitya Tarangini.
Prabhu, I have a question on the last verse we read today. There Krishna says that people who are on this path of bhakti, for them, the results are not last, but about the process, right? He's talking about also the karma kanda and ritualistic activities. So how do does it apply to devotees in all stages, like neophyte and, in the middle stage or advanced stage? Because I know people who are coming from the background who do like a lot of rituals, it's often, for me, it's I remember the Krishna's instruction in Bhagavad Gita that you don't agitate the people who are not on the bhakti path. So how do we deal with this? We know we have to depend on Krishna, but at the same time, how do we find the balance, not to agitate other people's mind and still follow this? We have this faith, but how do we proceed from this, progress on this?
And I'm assuming that, there is a rather, for this generic question, there is some personal experience that you have, that you feel that somebody is too attached to rituals, and how can we kind of help them move from very ritualistic mindset to being more dependent on Krishna?
Yes, for them, also for me, how do we handle it? I don't want to come out as the arrogant kind of personality, kind of know it all, this is what Krishna says, so I don't have to do it. But Like, I don't want to portray that kind of image, but at the same time, I also don't want to spend much time on those things which don't inculcate the bhakti for Krishna. So how do I find that balance?
So one of the questions that the sages asked in Naimisharanya in the first canto of Bhagavatam, they said, like, there are many scriptures, and all these scriptures recommend many duties and many pujas and homas or whatever. They said, please give us the essence. Please give us the summary and the highest thing that we can do to pursue our spiritual life. And Nityatarangini Mataji, I can only imagine the consternation you have seeing so many other things that are going on when sages 5,000 years ago, who had much more better facilities to execute what they need to execute, they were rather bewildered and flustered by this whole set of scriptures. And then the Bhagavatam came out as the essence, as the saram of all the scriptures, and devotional service to Krishna is the highest. But having said that, everybody comes from every different background to the process of bhakti. It's the faith might not be strong in the beginning to kind of say, I'll do only devotional service to Krishna. But over a period of time, by the practice and also by inculcating the knowledge and by having the association of that like-minded devotees, it would take some time. But I understand where you are coming from, or rather, I can only imagine where you're coming from. And please take your time instead of just disrupting it in a very abrupt way. That kind of leaves the faith hanging, not perfectly here, not perfectly there. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. Yeah, that is very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. And one last, thank Lalita Mataji, I'll take one last thing and one thought I had. So Nityatarangini Mataji, one last point is, when your faith is tested, then because even in Krishna consciousness, we have so many things, deity worship, chanting, chapter a day, prasadam, and there are so many things even within our own Krishna consciousness, and to add from some external thing, that's even more difficult. So your criteria is that how good are my rounds, how attentively and how carefully am I chanting my 16 rounds. That should be my only benchmark to start with. That is my only benchmark. That is my only major goal. That is my only area where I can be very greedy to achieve perfection. At least if you can start with that, then Krishna sitting within your heart, slowly he will inspire you, to kind of get more and more deeper faith in him. Is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Yes, Lalita Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. It's a little technical question.
Yes,
so you mentioned that these yogis, they kind of merge in Brahma Jyotir. Now we looked at these verses that there is Brahman and there is Parabrahman. So they both are nothing but Brahma Jyotir, which is the effulgence of Lord Krishna's body. So these yogis, which Brahman do they merge into, and so they come back, right?
Thank you, Mataji. So, the Brahmaloka is there, and if you cross Brahmaloka, then there is Shivaloka, or the Mount Kailash, which is beyond, and then above Shivaloka is the border between the material and spiritual world. That is called the Varaja River, and just above Varaja River is the Brahman effulgence of the Lord. So the yogis can go up to that point of Brahman effulgence where there is no pangs of material, no modes of material nature to trouble you. There is perfect peace and quiet. But the problem is their conscience is not evolved in devotional service to access the spiritual varieties that Krishna and his Golok Vrindavan and the varieties of rasa that exist there. It is not accessible to them because they have not reached there. So if because of the lack of that spiritual variety and the lack of seva, then they usually fall back. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. There is every chance that they will fall back. At that point, they consider themselves perfect, but they haven't completely respected the lotus feet of Krishna. So that's the reason why they fall back.
So jivas are the marginal energy of Krishna. So is this exactly where we are coming from, Prabhuji?
The fall of jiva is a complicated topic, Mata. Where are we, where did we come from? And did we come from Krishna or did we are always here? It's hard to tell. Honestly, the reason being, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the Lord say that the time where we fell into the material world, they say anadi, which means that it's time immemorial. You cannot define at a point of time. But nevertheless, we have been in the material world for a long time. And there are special cases like Jay and Vijay. They fell from Vaikuntha and they 3 births in the life, they went back. So there are special cases like how they fell. And sometimes jivas, we have just been here since time immemorial and we need to go back. So it's hard to tell.
Okay, I was just wondering if these sadhus go back to where we have come from.
Actually, it depends on how much advanced they have in terms of bhakti yoga or other yoga forms.
Okay. Okay, sorry for the question, Prabhuji. I know it's...
Oh, please, never be. Please ask questions. The whole purpose of having a class is just for this exact purpose, so that we can learn amongst, the association of devotees. Otherwise, we can just read and we can write the exam, but it will be the most boring thing in this universe.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mata.
Prabhu, I have a question regarding what you answered, Mataji. So you said like up to the point of Brahman. So does it mean that they got Brahman realization, or they just went up to the point but didn't achieve the Brahman realization?
They achieved Brahman realization, and that the definition of that is mentioned by Krishna in the 6th chapter, 20th and 21st verses, where he talks. They achieve a stage, and they say, and he gives the description. So they achieve Brahman realization. They are fixed in Brahman realization, but the jiva, as we said, has an eternal nature, and that if that is not met, then the jiva is not satisfied. So either he has to find a devotee who will help them back to or push further. For example, the 4 Kumaras, they were on this, the perfection of dhyana, but they smelt the lotus feet of the tulsi, they smelled the fragrance of tulsi coming from the Lord's lotus feet in Vaikuntha, and they got attracted, and their minds and heart turned, and they became devotees. Unless some external factor like that happens, you cannot make a jump from Brahma Jyoti to Golok Vrindavan on your own.
Sorry, Prabhu. What I meant is that you mentioned that they reach up to that point and they fall down. So what I was trying to understand is Krishna says that Brahmano hi pratishtaham, like Amritasya, Avyayasya cha, and then Shashvatasya. So he says like that Brahman is Shashvata. So that's what I was trying to understand, that how can they fall down if Brahman is Shashvata?
So fall down in the sense that they come back to the material world still Brahman realized, means that they are not afflicted by the material world, but nevertheless they come down here to get into association of a bhakta, to give them that mercy, to give them the adhikar to do devotional service. It's not like they come here, they fall from Brahman realization and they become a demon and start like womanizing and drinking. No, they already have that yoga siddhi, but the access to bhakti comes from a devotee.
Okay, Prabhu. And then one more. So how do they reach there? Because when Arjuna asked that how do I get free from the three modes of material nature, so Krishna says that Mam chayo avyavicharena bhakti yogena sevate. So only if you do bhakti, you can get rid of the three modes of material nature. And the sloka you mentioned that like they are averse to Krishna. So if they are averse to Krishna, then how they can be Brahman realized in the first place?
So it's not averse to Krishna. So here is the thing. The yogis are not averse to Krishna, but they have not the full knowledge of Krishna's personal features. And for those, you can use bhakti to overcome the modes of material nature or use that to go back to Krishna. But please understand, the mamchayo avyabhicharena is meant for the devotees, not for the yogis. Because I already know Krishna and I have complete faith that I need to engage in his service. And he's saying by doing that, you are already transcending the Brahman, which the yogis take so much time to achieve. So that was the purpose. It was not any other way. Because if you carefully study the 6 chapters, middle 6 chapters, if everything is included in the middle 6 chapters, then achieving Brahman realization should be also included in the middle 6 chapters. Yes or yes? And that is that particular verse, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. Otherwise, already I have achieved Brahman realization in the 6th chapter. Then why would Krishna again say, do the same thing in the 14th chapter? It doesn't make sense. Because a bhakta, we can see that a bhakta is starting from 7th, not from the previous ones. We are all bhaktas. Actually, technically speaking, we are starting from 7th. We haven't done Ashtanga Yoga. We haven't done Jnana. We haven't done Veda. Nothing we have done. So if we are starting from 7th, the whole question is, are we not missing? So the yogis are not averse to Krishna, but they are neglectful of Krishna. And my thing is 10th canto, 2nd chapter, Yenira Vindaksha verse. Take that, Timir Prabhu, and go through the purport. Then you will see the subtle differences. But it's an excellent question. Does that answer you a bit, Timir Prabhu?
Yeah. I think I will. I have to read through the verses more to.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's an ironical thing that how come, what do you mean, Prabhu? They have reached Brahman and you still say they'll fall down. I'm not saying this. This is what Prabhupada is saying. The idea there is fall down in the sense that Brahman realization, if you are eternally a servant of Krishna, serving him in loving relationship in Golok Vrindavan, and you didn't take the path of bhakti, but you took the path of Brahman realization, you can reach to a certain position, but you cannot go further. But bhakti can actually propel you further. So that was the whole idea. And then fall down means that you will come back to seek seva somewhere, and then you can further advance in devotional service.
Yes, Prabhu, that answers somewhat, and then I'll read more. Thank you.
Yeah, but then if you have more questions, Timir Prabhu, we can take it offline. I'm more than happy to discuss that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prabhuji, I had a follow-up question.
Yes, Shruti Priyamasi.
So if these yogis who get that Brahman realization go to that specific higher planet, is there no possibility there to advance further? Can't they not do the devotional service over there? Why do they have to come back to the earthly planet?
So depending on how much knowledge of Krishna they have, they can either progress upwards. That's what Srila Prabhupada writes. Either they can progress upwards and by the mercy of a pure devotee, or if they are, for example, if you can see, if I have achieved perfection in Jnana and I don't have any idea of Krishna or his personal feature, I only know Brahman, but I'm not satisfied there, I quote unquote fall down means from that Brahman position, I come back to the earth in a proper place where I can again pursue my devotional service. That is the idea, not anything else. Or it could be even in heavenly planets. But the idea is I'm not completely eligible to go to Golok Vrindavan and serve Krishna in a personal way till this particular purification is done here.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I have a question.
Yes, Bhumika.
Yes, so my question is related to the Mataji's question. So for progressing further, you always have to come back to earth, or there's no way you can progress from other planetary system.
No. You can progress from other planetary systems. Even if you're on Brahmaloka, if you are on, for example, Brahmaloka, you're already almost on the verge of being liberated, because your body is composed of pure goodness. It's Sattva Guna. The body is composed of Sattva Guna. And by performing austerities, you can either directly go back, or if your desire is not for material contamination is not purified, then you can come back and go up and down. So it's very much possible to kind of achieve spiritual perfection from other planets. But the problem with other planets is that because of the extreme opulence and other sources of enjoyment, the diversion can be much more compared to the Earth, where it's because the suffering and the happiness are in equal balance. You see both at the same time. It's easier from here rather than the upper planetary systems, but definitely you can do it from upper planetary systems as well.
Okay, thank you, bro.
Thank you. All right, I think it's 3:23 now. Thank you so very much. Any final questions or comments? Any exam questions? We are all good. You can always send it on the WhatsApp. We can discuss it next week. So next week will be the last class of the first semester, the 9th chapter, which talks of pure devotion. We talked of mixed devotion a little bit and some little bit of pure devotion, but next chapter will be the pure devotional service to Krishna that we'll be talking about.
Prabhu, it will be next week, right?
Yes. Sorry, Mataji. Yes.
And for essay questions, would there be like how many essay questions would be there? Any?
Usually there will be like 2 to 3, but
okay.
Please read up on Yoga Ladder. You never know.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
That is something Bhakti Shastri students should have a reasonable familiarity with. Like, what is Yoga Ladder? You should never be confused with what the yoga systems are and what is this all about. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Thank you for your class and all your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Very well.
Hare Krishna.